Welcome to Showdown. I'm Mark Kaysen. This is Tuesday, and it's the 15th of October. And I have to say that with exactly 3 weeks left, the landscape is just amazing. Firstly, because, we have this division between Earth 1 and Earth 2. And there's just no question that on Earth 2, there is a completely different view of what's happening. I mean, totally different. Now, part of it is because, unfortunately, the people on Earth 2 believe every word that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth. And we all know that Donald Trump lies. And why they believe it, well, that's something we'll be studying, I assure you, for decades after. There's no doubt about that. But, back here on Earth 1, not only is the view of what's happening so clear, so simple, but on top of it all, we are being joined by an amazing group of people that's really worthy of a lot of consideration. Again, how this turns out here on Earth 1, we really know. Or maybe I should say this. I know, because I have to also tell you that there are so many people on Earth 1 who are very fearful because they hear all this discussion of the polls and they just don't understand what is being conflated from Earth 2, which is just meaningless nonsense. But still, maybe that's okay, since it keeps people motivated, it keeps people working, it keeps people doing what they have to do, which is to not only vote, but to be sure that everybody else that intends to vote actually shows up and votes. Now, I have no doubt that that's going to happen. And, I always report, some of the things that I talk about with my brothers. And, my brothers and I were talking today about Michael Moore. And see, my brothers are very scared. They think this is a close election and that Donald, might lose or he might win. And I mean, they're listening to too much of this craziness that's being tossed around that has absolutely no basis in reality. None. Nevertheless, they believe it, and so do many people in America. But anyway, we were talking about Michael Moore because, Michael Moore was, he's famous for lots of things and many, great documentaries that he's done. But on top of that, he's sort of famous for what he said in 2016 when he said that people don't understand that Hillary might lose. In fact, he thought that Hillary would lose, and in reality, Hillary lost, although she won the popular vote. We understand that, but everything isn't run by popular vote. And so by a few small votes in several states, Donald won miraculously for him. Now, at the same time, we know that Joe Biden won by a sliver of votes in those same states, even though his popular vote run-up was just much more than even Hillary. In the case of Biden, he was up to 7 million, net 7 million for him. Hillary was net 3 million. I have been saying that this year, I think there's a very good chance that we're looking at 10 million more votes for for Kamala over Donald. Now, if it turns out to be more than 10 million, I would not be surprised. But I would say at least 10 million. And of course, everybody's talking today about all of these voters that are pouring out in Georgia where early voting is going on. And apparently, there's just this great enthusiasm. And when you say enthusiasm, you don't even have to ask anybody anymore whether they're voting for Democrats or Republicans, because all you have to do is check gender. It's, and I've said this for many months. Women are going to make the difference in this election, although no doubt it'll also be the black vote as well as young people. So women, blacks, young people, that's where this is going to end. And that'll be the end of Donald J. Trump. By the way, the initials DJT. And that's sort of an interesting story in itself, which I did mention on the last program. And I understand we had a problem yesterday. But anyway, we're here today. But anyway, on the last show, that's a day and a little more than a day ago, add in the weekend, we talked about how DJT stock had been rising. And really, the story there had to do with a crazy rumor that was floating around relative to the possibility that Elon Musk would buy, I hate to say the name, because saying truth around Donald Trump, I mean, he purposely did that, so, but at any rate, I know it's Truth Social, so we'll just say it once anyhow. But here's the deal. That stock, which had dropped from 80 to 12, it stopped a couple times at 23. It then bounced back yesterday into the low 30s, today to 36 at the high. At the high. At the close, it had dropped from 36 to 26. And, this isn't surprising. And I talked about it before as well. And that is, you can have rumors, things can happen in the marketplace. This is not a real company. Donald Trump is not a real person. He's a maniac. And so anyway, 26 to 36 or 12 to 36 and now down to 26. And it could be 12 tomorrow. It could be 1 in 3 weeks when Donald loses. Or it could be even sooner, because the people who are involved in this, what they're counting on is the same lunacy that Earth 2 is hoping for, some miraculous win by this insane person. And when I say insane, and I've said insane, I've said Hitler, I've said Nazis, I said neo-Nazis, but here's the best one. You've got all these military people, and they're all Republicans. General Milley, General Stanley McChrystal. There was a guy yesterday who I never heard of before. His name was General Dan Manner. And all of these people are coming out of the woodwork, and they're saying the following. Donald Trump is not only just a danger to the country, but as Mark Milley says, he is a fascist through and through. And here's the other thing. For anybody out here who has imagined that I was losing my mind every time I talked about Hitler, well, see, now all these military people are coming out and saying Hitler, because this is all so obvious. Now, I never expected that the military people would jump up with this. They really hesitate to get involved in politics. But the truth is, this is the real truth. There are a bunch of people in the military and retired from the military who are so fearful of what this crazy person wants to do that they have just decided that they have to bite the bullet and say, here's how I feel on this. And they're all coming out in support of Kamala Harris. And, just to show the difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And, a few days ago, there was all this talk. Well, Kamala's scared and she doesn't know what to do and she can't talk. Well, all the can't talk stuff was ridiculous because she's been talking very well. But she's now booked to go on the Joe Rogan broadcast. She's booked to go on Fox News. And the truth is, she's everywhere. She's everywhere. She's saying everything. She has absolutely no fear. And she sounds terrific. She sounds like an amazing candidate who is inspiring people all over this country. Now, I understand that the polls are showing, and by the way, when I say the polls, it's all the polls, because I know there was an NBC poll that showed that on a national level that these two candidates are tied, but other polls came out subsequently that showed Kamala with at least 3 points, at least a 3-point lead. Now, I know some of these polls were showing 5 and 7 points a week ago, but I also said something which, after I said it, next thing you knew, Gene Robinson from the Washington Post came out and he was saying it too. And I believe Gene Robinson more than I believe myself, to tell you the truth. And Robinson said, and I echo this, there are undoubtedly Republicans around the country who are going to vote for Kamala Harris. Many are already telling that they are. But in the polling, there are many who are probably being called and who are fearful to say, I'm voting for Kamala Harris. Now, you might say, what are they afraid of? Well, you could say the same thing that was going on in 2016, where Republicans who were going to vote for Donald Trump were afraid to say it. And eventually they did vote for him, even though he lost the popular vote by 3 million. But still, many were afraid to say that they were going to vote for Trump just because they didn't want to be shamed. Well, it's a little worse than that now. In fact, a lot worse, because Donald's threatening to kill people, and there are people who are fearful for their lives. No doubt about it. And they're saying they're fearful for their lives, and they're also reporting all of the death threats that they're receiving for various kinds of activity that normally in American history would have meant nothing. For example, going to the polls to be a poll worker and talking about the truth. That is saying, look, this election is undoubtedly going to be very fair, very transparent for everybody. And at the same time, Donald is probably going to start fighting and attempt once again to overthrow the government. I think he's going to get far less this time than he did the first time on January 6th in Washington, D.C., since he really doesn't have the reins of power anymore. But he does have, of course, legions of neo-Nazis and other bizarre groups, all fascist groups, as described by General Milley, General McChrystal, others, people's names who nobody has heard of, but the big names are out here right now, and they're not afraid of anything. They're speaking up. So what does all this mean? It means that Donald is in exactly the position that Michael Moore is describing, and which I described to my brothers, and which a lot of people maybe aren't even understanding. But as Michael Moore says, Donald's toast. And I think that's true. And I understand that there are polls that show that things look closer than what I'm describing. But also, let me say, in 3 weeks, we'll know what's real. I understand if what I'm saying is true, Donald will deny it, and Earth 2 will say that they won. He could lose by 10 million votes, and they'll say he won. I heard people last night talking about Donald having won the last election in California. Who believes that? And then someone else says, oh, well, they're just joking. Well, you know, this is clearly not the time for that joke. Now, you can tell it if you want, because as some other people have said, like Joe Scarborough, it's a free country for now. But I think it's going to stay free, because I don't think that Donald will get anywhere close to anything having to do with power in the United States. And, you know, for those people who are out here talking about civil war, and believe me, on Earth 2, this is a very hot topic. They are really ginning up for civil war, which I find laughable, since I guess they don't understand this is no longer 1861. The government has a whole lot of power, and the people who think that they're going to fight the United States of America with handguns, well, they're just going to be in jail with the other 1,000 who are already in jail where they belong, and where Donald will not be releasing them. Now, I know Donald tells everybody he's going to release them, or I shouldn't say that. Nah, listen, let me be honest. He used to say he was going to release them. That was at his rallies. He no longer talks at his rallies. He dances. Now, some people will say, well, that's kind of silly to make fun of him dancing. I mean, he could dance if he wants. You know, he danced yesterday for 39 minutes to crazy music. And here's the thing. He can dance if he wants to dance. Yeah.
Mark, you're lying. You're a liar. You're a liar.
He can dance if he wants to dance. He can walk around behind me if he wants.
I'm huge.
Yeah.
You're not. I'm going to win.
Yeah.
Who the hell is Michael Moore?
Yeah, right. Toast. Do you like toast? Yeah, there you go. That's excellent.
I hope your show already.
No, you really do. You know, I was going to put that on a clip.
Will go up like mine.
Yeah, I was going to put that on a clip.
I dominate you.
Yeah, listen, I was going to put it on a clip. I was going to.
Biden.
I know.
He's lost.
Go ahead.
I'm the man.
No, that's very good. Excellent work, Vic. By the way, you know, I've thought about getting a mask like that for Halloween. The only problem is it's not funny. I mean, under normal circumstances, it would be funny, but I mean, I might as well just shave, part of my mustache off, and I can just be Hitler. But, that is the interesting thing. I mean, it's all funny. And regular people are good people, even if they support Donald, because in the first place, they don't know what they're getting into. They're on Earth too. How could they know? They've got information off of Fox and I guess Joe Rogan and whoever else is out here, putting craziness here. Take this one. I mean, for years, I sat around and I thought, what happened to Geraldo Rivera? I mean, he's lost his mind. Next thing you know, Geraldo Rivera is saying, nah, this is too far. The man's crazy. So it's credible people. It's people who you would think aren't so credible. It doesn't really much matter. The whole Republican group is rushing to Kamala Harris. Now, obviously, there are some people on Earth, too, who aren't. And, I can laugh about it. We can all laugh. I wouldn't be laughing if I thought he could win. But I do worry about one thing. And that's all of these people, and especially when I say this, I'm talking about people who live in rural areas with very little education, and their wives are going to vote for Kamala, but the men are all ginned up to vote for Donald. And I'm just not sure why we have this unbelievable divide. I mean, even when you're out in the rural areas, I mean, anywhere you go, there's a civil war brewing, yes. It won't be with handguns. It won't be with tanks. It won't be with the military. It's men against their wives and against women. Men against women. I mean, that's the fight. That's what's happening in America. And the polls show that big time. Now, that one, there's no question about. The gigantic numbers in favor of Kamala are women. And whatever the numbers are in favor of Donald, it's men. And a lot of the pollsters say that what's going to happen here is there's going to be a test of the degree of motivation between the two sides. And that's why I feel absolutely certain that Donald is toast, as Michael Moore says, because I don't think men really care too much about all of this. And I think that women care a whole lot about it because they know that either they or a relative or a close friend or any other woman could end up in an emergency room somewhere, refused medical care in at least 25 of the 50 states, because those states that have banned abortions are also intimidating doctors so that they won't help women who don't even want abortions, but who need medical care to survive. They won't live without it. In fact, many are dying. And the stories are coming out all over the country of women who are bleeding out in restrooms and in their homes, in their cars, in parking lots. This is all over the country. I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise either, because here's the thing. If a woman is pregnant and she gets up to 20, 21, 22 weeks and her water breaks, she's in danger of death. That's death. And it happens too much. Now, that's not anybody's fault. That's just nature. And that's why doctors play such an important role in protecting health care for those women. But see, what we've got is a situation where these doctors are scared, because in many of these states, if somebody perceives that they're doing the wrong thing, they can go to jail. Doctors fearful of going to jail are refusing to provide health care for potential mothers who are miscarrying. And this is happening in substantial numbers. Now, you know, one of the crazy stories that the Republican Party has told and still tells is that Democrats kill their children after they're born, and it's some kind of a 9-month abortion of some kind. I mean, it's nonsense. It never happens. Not once. Never. Now, if it does ever happen that a woman kills her child, that's called infanticide, and you go to jail. But there's no such thing as a 9-month abortion when you're born. There's no case of that. Zero. Doctors everywhere said it never happens. Well, of course, I mean, it's just silly to even suspect that it could happen. But it's being told over and over again on the Republican side that actually supports Donald for whatever that amounts to. And I just cannot wait to see these numbers in 3 weeks, because in addition to the fact that Donald is going to lose this election by a large amount, in addition to that, the other thing that's coming is that the black vote is going to be gigantically in favor of Democrats, even to the point that we could be looking at 5, 6, 7% Republicans voting on the black, from the black population, 5, 6, 7. And that's on the low end of what Republicans, normally get. They could get up to 10, but probably you're looking at 5, 6, 7. And certainly you may be looking at an increase in black men who vote for Donald. But you're also looking at this enormous increase of black women who are voting for Kamala. Now, if that doesn't hold up, Donald might be looking at 3% of the black vote coming into this 3 weeks from now. So, there's a lot going on here that it's easy to deny. And, I was on a radio show yesterday, and I gave this explanation. I may have given this explanation here as well. But let me say, in baseball, when you get to spring training, everybody thinks they've got a team. Now, maybe last year you lost 100 games. And by the way, this year there was an example of, the Kansas City Royals lost 100 games and they turned around and did extremely well. So that does happen. But often you get to spring training and everybody starts talking about their chances for winning the World Series. Well, before you play any games, everybody's got a chance. And talking about it is baseball. That's what's fun. You come to baseball and you get to spring training and you talk about everything. That's what we love about it. That's a great game. But here's the thing. We are in spring training right now. And on Earth 2, you could say anything. You can talk about Donald winning the black vote, the Hispanic vote, the women's vote, the young people's vote. You can talk about everything. But then the game starts, and of course, in this case, ends on November 5th. And you find out that your team just doesn't have any players. And that's the end of the conversation. So, yeah, everybody can mouth off for the next 3 weeks, say everything. But then the election's going to be over, and I'm saying Donald will be pummeled, and that's saying it nicely. Now, I also want to add to that when Donald loses big, he's going to say he won. And then he's going to try to get all of his Nazis to come out and fight. And I say fight. I don't mean fight like, Kamala says. Kamala says, yeah, when we fight, we win. Yeah, I know that story. And she's made it very clear that no one's supposed to fight. It's not fighting. It's sending out envelopes, making phone calls, doing everything you can on the ground to get people to show up to vote. So she says, when we fight, we win. Donald, on the other hand, has a little different story when it comes to fighting. For example, and of course, this will be denied, but you've got video on this everywhere. Donald says that what we need is one violent day of policing in America. That we need to let the police go and they can just do anything they want for a day. Complete chaos from the police. And he has said it that way. And he says, if you do that, he said on day 2, crime will disappear. Now, of course, the problem with that is crime has already disappeared. We're at a 50-year low in violent crime in America. That doesn't mean there's no crime. So, of course, you can go out and find somebody who committed a crime. And you can hold that person up and say, look what I found. But the fact is, clear fact, that the crime rate is at a 50-year low. We have so little crime in this country. It is just diminishing all the time. It's an age issue, you all. The country is aging. I've talked about this so many times. You don't understand? Go to college, take a sociology class. This is so well understood. In every society, when the society ages, crime diminishes. It's that simple. There's no policy that does this. It's not the police going wild for a day. It's none of that. Okay, here's some online stuff aside from where it says not true. So, trying to explain that I'm lying, but that's all right. Earth 2, I get it. We will get chaos with the left. Remember the summer of love. You know something? You realize I am 73 years old. So in 1969, I was 18 years old. I know very well the summer of love. Nobody was doing any of the kinds of things that you seem to be describing here. In fact, I was in Washington, D.C. We had a thing that they called the moratorium. There were 1 million people in Washington, D.C. for that event. And among those millions, that 1 million people, there wasn't probably one violent occurrence, period. In fact, one of the things that everybody was noticing on that day was that it wasn't just kids like us. I know you're looking at me and you see my bald head and all that, but, I had long hair, longer than probably anybody It was long. And in fact, it was pretty nice hair too. But at any rate, forget that part. But the key is no one was hurting anybody. Nobody. And go to the Million Man March. That's in 1995. There was no violence there whatsoever. None. Zero. Back in the 1960s, there was a big event up in San Francisco where there was slightly less than 1 million. No violence there at all. Oh, you had some people doing drugs. Okay, sure. But nothing that's not legal today. It's all legal today. I don't, so, and it's not me defending it. I didn't do any drugs anyway. I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink. I didn't do anything. I just had long hair and I was a far left radical. And we said radical then, and I say radical now. People say, what are you? Well, I like to describe what I am because I think it's important for people to understand who you are and what your identity is. I am a radical leftist. No question about that. Now, what is a radical leftist? I mean, I've never hurt anybody except for I chased my brothers around the house with a strap when I was 10. So, yeah, I did that. My brother, he had a gun. Well, it was a cap gun anyway. He was 6. He went over to the neighbor's house and whacked the guy over the head because he saw it on television and didn't think it hurt. Okay, so, I mean, this is the extent of violence. I don't know what you're even talking about. No one I know is involved in any violence. I could tell you, you want a name? I'll give you a name. I wouldn't give a lot of names, but I can give this one because he's happy to have his name out here. Anthony Shahid. Anthony Shahid is one of the most radical black people in the city. Absolutely total radical. Now, let me assure you, he's never hit anybody. He's never hurt anybody. And if you saw him in public, well, you would swear that he was some kind of a conservative because just the way he treats people, he's just very kind. He's just almost gentle. Now, there's no question when it comes to politics, he's furiously pro-black. That's a fact. But would he hurt anybody? Come on. You got to be kidding. Some of my friends on the right who make fun of my relationships with people in the black community, they say things about my, how I feel about black people and how they feel about me. And let me say, I've known many black radicals, many. None have ever hurt anybody. Of course, we know what happened to Fred Hampton. He had a gun under his pillow, and in walked the FBI and blew his head off. He didn't use the gun to hurt anybody. He was trying to defend himself, and when he was asleep, they killed him. So, yeah, I understand that whole thing. But I will say that this belief in people running wild and coming out of mental institutions from Venezuela, and this is all lunacy. It's Donald Trump being crazy. Okay, let's see. DRC says, make spanking great again. LOL. Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, it's funny, but it's just not happening. We don't do that. We don't hurt people or kids. Different times. Valid marches then. Oh, yeah. Okay. Did you hang out in San Francisco? Yes, I hung out in San Francisco. Yes, I did. Let's see. So that is called karma. No, Mark. Summer of Love is when BLM was burning everything down in their path. No, they weren't. They weren't burning down everything in their path. Oh, here he comes again. Go ahead.
You're lying. You're a left-wing lunatic.
Yeah, well.
You're a lunatic.
Yeah.
Mark.
Well,
you lost your mind.
I'll tell you this. Here's something. No, this is the truth, Vic. This is the truth.
Vic,
I know, Donald. I know. Here's the truth. I know. Here's the truth.
Your little special
If
man.
and I only wish that he could win.
I'm huge.
I only wish he could win.
I'm huge.
The reason I wish he could win is because immediately I would come out and demand that he arrest me. Because when he envisions he's going to arrest all the news people. I understand you'll be okay.
Yeah, where you belong, Mark.
Yeah, no, I know. I will demand that he come and get me because I want him to arrest. I can understand where the people in Russia are. I understand how they are because I would be the same way.
I'm crushing in the polls.
Come and get me. Yeah, on Earth too.
I'm winning.
Yeah, have you ever seen?
I'm going to win, Mark.
Have you ever seen the second version, of Back to the Future? Check it out, Biff. And when you get through here, when you're through dancing behind me, I got a car.
Is good.
I got a car out in the parking lot. You can wax it, Biff. Good. No, really. You've seen that new car of mine.
You're dating Tim Walls.
Could you wax it for me, Biff?
You're dating Tim Walls, aren't you?
Biff, wax it. Okay. I hope it's in good shape when it comes. Although I did park it on the other end of the lot because, when you have a new car like that, you don't want people hitting it. So, okay. Here, the comment, you don't remember Minnesota burning. No, I don't remember Minnesota burning. I remember some people who burned some police cars and a few buildings. But I will tell you this. I had a friend who gave a speech in 1968 in Los Angeles at Valley State University. And his name was Phil. And Phil gave this speech. It was a great speech. And somebody came out and turned over a police car and burned it. And they put Phil in jail for 3 months. So, yeah, I understand this has always been around. But you know what? It wasn't okay. Today on Earth 2, this is okay. And that is not okay. But I'll tell you what is okay. Dinner at Wendy's. Now that is more than okay. First of all, you're talking about wings, and I know everybody loves wings, and you should. Just because I don't, that's just me. But wings, and they're good wings. They're great. Everybody loves them. That's at Wendy's. Now, they also have smoked meat. They've got hamburgers, cheeseburgers, patty melts, which, if you put a lot of onions on it, even I can go for those patty melts for sure. Then you've got pizza. You've got salad. Great drinks, especially the iced tea. I love it. I can't tell you about the rest of it because, there's certain kinds of drinks that I don't do. I'm bad enough sober. Can you imagine if I were drunk? That would be dangerous as all get out. But anyway, no, I don't do that. But I do iced tea, and that's great at Wendy's. And of course, the baby back ribs and the onion rings, that I love. So, check all that great food out at Wendy's and the terrific atmosphere. And it's all good. But you can also go to Defiance and get the same great Wendy's food in Defiance. That's Wendy's. You'll love all of their great meals. Now, if you want jewelry, you just go straight to 4506 Hampton, and you will get great jewelry because that's Jewels on Hampton. I know I'm getting some talk here about emotional damage. Yeah, you know what? Can you get me... it's David Gregory. I keep wanting to call him Dick Gregory. Can you get him on the phone? Maybe he can get me a case here. Are you insured, Vic? I mean, I just want to make sure you're putting that Donald Trump face behind me. That does cause trauma. But look, forget all that. Let's just go to 4506 Hampton and get some great jewelry. Al and his son AJ are there. They have a great operation. All that jewelry in the cases, and I mean they have cases and cases and cases of jewelry, And you can buy, you can sell coins as well as jewelry. And when it's all said and done, if you want to talk about, the different designs, and they'll talk about their designs, you can do all of that. But don't forget, they'll also fix your watch. And that's at Jewels on Hampton. Now, if you want great clothes, you go to Clayton. That's the St. Louis Suit Company on the corner of Central and Forsyth. And you will find every great kind of suit that you can imagine. And you see me, I'm in my suit again. I'm always in my suit. I've always believed that if you're going to be crazy, wear a suit, you'll get in less trouble. So anyhow, St. Louis Suit Company, it's been there for 30 years. And I'm sure they'll be there for 10, 20, or 30 more. They're that good. It's the St. Louis Suit Company. They've got suits. They've got shirts. They've got $5 ties, and they're really nice. Everything about this place is first class, and the prices are low. That's the St. Louis Suit Company in Clayton. Now, they've been there for 30 years, but guess what? 40 years. Now, that's really doing well, and that's Telena's. Telena's in Creve Coeur. They've been there for 40 years. The best Italian food that you're ever going to find. And I always say, because I talk about what I like, and that's the spaghetti and meatballs, and they are the best. I mean, you could not believe me about anything. You could be on Earth 2, but you know what? On Earth 2, they eat spaghetti and meatballs, and they love those spaghetti and meatballs at Telena's because they are the best. My friend Mehdi, he just knows how to do this. He's done it for 40 years. I don't know that he's got 40 years left. That's, we're not young anymore. But look, 40 years is a pretty good run. That's Telena's, 141 in Olive, right next to Deerberg's. Right there. That is Telena's, and they are good. Great pizza, great spaghetti and meatballs. You'll love it. Okay. So while we're talking about crazy people, I think it's a good time to talk a little about Mike Johnson. Now, there's a man who could use some serious mental health. If you saw him over the weekend, I didn't have a chance to talk about this yesterday, but he was saying things that were just amazing. I mean, it's one thing to come from Donald, who we know is crazy. We know that. But you got Mike Johnson talking about Donald Trump being the strongest president in history. He's talking now about physical health. Physically, the strongest president in history. And then he goes on to say, and he's so strong, he doesn't even need to sleep. Where do people get these ideas? I don't quite understand. No, DRC, I've got David's phone number too. He's a good guy. I like him a lot. And, if I need some, help because of the trauma that I'm experiencing up here looking at pictures of Donald Trump. Yeah, then I can always make that call. Okay, so we'll worry about that. But here's another one. Here's one for Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson, of course, he says that Donald's the strongest president in history. I guess he never came across Teddy Roosevelt. Vic, do you know how strong Teddy Roosevelt was? Let me tell you how strong Teddy Roosevelt was. By the way, he was a Republican, but, he was liberal. But, here's the thing about Teddy Roosevelt. In 1912, he was giving a speech. By that time, he was running on the Bull Moose Party. He was giving a speech. He had to be 52 years old because he died at 60 8 years late. Yeah, so 52. And let me tell you something. He was the target of an assassination. And he actually took that bullet not on his ear. He took that bullet in his chest. And after he got that bullet in his chest, he spoke for another hour. He refused to get down from the dais. For another hour, he spoke and then went to the hospital and got medical care. Now, that man was tough. That man was tough. Donald Trump. Yeah, Donald Trump's now dancing on stage. And, you got a little bit of that behind me a few minutes ago. It's funny when Vic does it. It's pathetic when Donald Trump does it for 39 minutes and then walks off the stage and leaves. But amazingly, as people look at it and they think that they've just done something terrific. And truly, it just goes to show what can happen to people. I remember when we were kids, we used to say, what happened in Germany? How could these people do this? Why'd they go along with it? And, here's the thing. We know the answer now. Good people can do crazy things. They're sort of hypnotized on Earth 2. But, when they get back to Earth 1, Donald's back in the garage waxing the truck. And by the way, Steven Spielberg, talk about prescient. There was a guy who really figured things out 30 years ago. It's hard to believe, almost 40. How did he do it? But anyway, he did. And he foresaw this whole story. Go watch it. Back to the Future 2. You check that thing out and you'll understand Earth 2 from beginning to end. Mike Flynn, there's a great man, one of Donald's great friends. Of course, he was in jail like most of Donald's friends. And they were talking about Donald's idea that you can let the police go, let them go wild. And if you let them go wild for one day, Donald says, then crime will be over in America because everybody will see what's coming and they'll realize the danger and they'll just stop committing crimes. Of course, we know that the crimes continue to drop. I mean, as we speak right now, crime just keeps dropping. Day in, day out. It's lower every day. And by the way, let's not forget that among the people who commit these crimes, the lowest crime rate of all is immigrants. The people that Donald says are all part of wild gangs who are conquering the cities and taking over apartment buildings and all this other lunacy that they are, well, he says that we're going to deport them. We're going to put them in camps. We're going to do all these things. And I'm sure that Donald would love to do it. But, there was one reason that Hitler won in Germany that Donald won't win here. In Germany, it was not a two-party system. And with 35% of the vote, Hitler was their man. Can't happen in this country. You need more than 35, and frankly, you need more than 45, and Donald will not top 45. Okay, if it's 46, sue me, but it's going to be close. He'll be lucky to get beyond 45. But Mike Flynn says, absolutely, Donald is coming after criminals. He's coming after his opponents. And this is specific now. This is somebody didn't say this and I'm reporting it. I heard it. Mike Flynn said his opponents are going to find out that Donald will open the gates of hell against them. Is that what you want? I mean, is that the country you want to live in? I mean, don't worry, you're not going to, because Donald isn't winning anything. Nah, I take it back. President of the Prisoners Association. I want to continue to promote that idea because I do think that he's got a good shot at that. But that's it. Couldn't even win dog catcher. And by the way, he definitely couldn't get a job at the mall. You know, if Donald Trump went to the mall, we've talked about this before. This is one of my favorites. He goes to the mall and he asks for a job anywhere. Go to the t-shirt store. Go to one of the fast food places. Go anywhere. Well, you got to fill out an application. And when it gets to the point where you got to admit that you're a felon, convicted felon, well, you see, you can't get a job in those places because they don't hire convicted felons. But somebody on Earth 2 would like to hire Donald Trump to be president of the United States, and he can't even get a job at the mall. I find that pretty interesting. Okay, so I think I caught most of that junk that I wanted to get out there. But I do want to emphasize in the days ahead, we're going to be looking at if you want to talk about a civil war, I mean, we're going to be looking at men versus women. It's that simple. Here, look, this is online here. Now, like Springfield, Ohio, there's a small town being ravaged with an invasion in Pennsylvania. They say Aurora, Colorado as well. And of course, the officials of Aurora, Colorado, all Republicans, everyone a Republican, has come forward and said, not one bit of this is true. It's not true. It's not happening. Not in Aurora, nor anywhere else that they know of. These people who come from other countries, they're trying to get away from danger. They're not bringing danger. They're trying to get away from danger. They come here. They commit very few crimes, if any. Almost nothing. The numbers are actually amazingly low. Really, I've seen the numbers over and over, and it's just everywhere you look. In every one of these professional, scholarly journal studies, they're not just fact-checked. That's not what they do. They are peer-reviewed by professors all over the United States, do these peer reviews. And let me say, it's the same answer every time. Immigrants commit the fewest crimes. Now, people try to argue with me and say, well, there just aren't that many immigrants, blah, blah, blah. It's not that, though. It's a percentage. It's a percentage. As a percentage of the total number of immigrants, they commit very, very few crimes. But see, the funny thing is you say very few and somebody says, oh, but they commit some. And if they commit some, look what they're doing. They're in apartment buildings. Well, okay. So you're going to tell me that a gang member lived in an apartment building. Well, probably true. It's probably true that the Venezuela gang members found an apartment building to live in, and that's fine. But guess what? There aren't more than a handful of those people anywhere, and it's not even an issue. Ask them in Aurora. They'll tell you. Ask them, again, ask the Republicans in Springfield, Ohio. Ask the Republican governor in Ohio. They'll all tell you the same thing. No crime. Okay, I got to get out of here. Here's a reminder. Wenties, St. Louis Suit Company. Let's do Jules on Hampton and then Telena's. I'm Mark Kaysen. This is Showdown. Good night.